Hi there, welcome to today's painting tutorial. In this episode, we're going to paint a snowy pine tree with acrylic paints. So let's get started. And if you want to paint along with me, you can find a link to the sketch in the description below. I have three dark colors here that I'm going to start with. This is a Paynes Gray, a burnt umber, and an evergreen color. So I'm going to start with these dark colors as an underpainting. And I'm going to use a large brush. I have a size 11 flat brush. So let's take some of the burnt umber. And I'm going to just kind of block this in where the trunk of the tree would be. And then I'm going to add some Paynes Gray. And kind of go in that same pattern. And I'm using the Paynes Gray for this because it has a bluish undertone or a blue tint. And you'll see later how that comes further into play, further in the tutorial. Some along the bottom. Okay, and now I'm going to pick up this evergreen and add that into the center. You can go on the side of this brush to get some smaller strokes. Okay, and it's okay if the colors mix here as well. This large brush is really helping us get these loose brush strokes that are really nice and painterly. Then I'm just going to put this in kind of in the center and cover up some of these little white spots as well. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside and let's actually rinse it off so the paint doesn't dry on the brush. And then I'm going to grab another brush. I want to take a size 0 round brush, and this one has kind of a blunt tip to it. You don't want something with a really fine tip because we want to get in these tiny little areas here. And I'm going to use a dark green for that. The evergreen. So I want to let the brush kind of help me get these shapes here and have the brush do the work for me so that I can just put a little bit of pressure down and sort of lift up. And the size of my brush is matching the tips of these little branches. Okay, so follow along with the sketch that I provided for you. And that should help you get be a really good guide for this. Okay, but we're not really doing any detail at this point. We're still just getting basic shapes down and using the brush to help us get those shapes. Okay, so you can take your time with this. If you want to go slowly, you can pause the video and just take your time getting all of these little tips of the branches in. Okay, and you can also move your paper to make this easier for yourself because the brush, when it goes that way, is giving a more rounded edge. Okay, so then when you get down to this area, we don't have these tiny little branches as much. So you can just kind of get a little bit more paint on your brush and press down a little bit harder to get some thicker lines. Okay, and then I don't want this dark paint to mix with our lighter values. So what you want to do at this point is let this dry completely so you don't have any wet paint left. And then we will move to the next step. So now I'm going to take the size 0 round brush, and I have some of this color. It's kind of a minty sage color. And let's take the round brush and start putting that in along the top. So I'm just kind of dabbing over the green because I want some of that darker green to continue to show through. Just kind of adding dots here. And then you can think about how the branches would be coming out of the center of the tree. And use the shape of the brush to kind of mimic those branches. Okay, so I want to vary the color a little bit. So let's take some of this white and add a little bit of the Paynes Gray. And when you mix that together, you should have kind of a light blue color, sort of a grayish, a light blue. I'm going to add some more white in there. Okay, and now let's put that in. So it gives us a color very similar to this one, but just a little bit more on the blue side. And that makes a really pretty shadow for the tree. Okay, I'm continuing to think about the shape of the branches as they come out from the center. Trying to mimic those shapes. Okay, I might switch back to the greenish color. And you can try to connect some of these branches, try to make different kind of sizes, different shapes. Okay, and then you can let that dry completely, and then we'll come back to the next step. Now we're going to come in with a size 0 round brush, and let's do some detailing and refining. So I'm going to do that with some of this Paynes Gray and mix it with some of this Evergreen so we get a really dark green color. And then I want to come in and just bring back in some of this dark color and also use it to add some shadows And any place that I want to kind of refine and have it stand out. Just doing some shading. Okay, I'm going sort of underneath some of the branches with this darker color to make it look like the bottom of the branch is in that shadow. And there might be some little white pieces that will benefit from being covered up by the darker paint. Along the bottom, can use more shadow. Okay, and then with the dark green, if you take your dark green and you get the paint right on the tip of that brush, you could even add further detail and put little lines along some of these lighter patches, just to give the appearance of pine needles. And that's just adding another layer of detail, another layer of definition to the piece. Okay, and don't forget to stand back and look at your work. Always getting too close and getting tunnel vision. So kind of step back as you do this as well. Okay, and another thing you could do is get onto these tiny little areas here around the edges. And you could add more detail there as well. Kind of refine those and try to make even smaller lines. It's kind of tricky to do, but if you have a small brush, you can get more detail and add the individual pine needles just to add more realism. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush and we can put in some highlights. So for that, let's take a little bit of white and maybe add a tiny bit of this blue. Let's see if we can get a really light blue color. And then start adding some of that in as a highlight. So I'm sort of going on top of some of these lighter branches or these kind of sage colored spots that we did. Okay, so you want this to look natural, so you don't have to put it over every single branch. Try to use it sparingly. and kind of strategic places. The places that you put it are going to come forward and pop. So you might want to step back as you do this as well. Okay, just little pieces of snow. Okay, you could pick like maybe 4 little places that you want to add this. Because I have the tendency to really go overboard and just put my highlights everywhere. And that kind of makes it hard for the eye to know where to focus. Okay, and then you could take like a straight white. Maybe rinse your brush or even take a new brush. I'm using, again, the size 0 round with a straight white that's not contaminated. And then use that as your final highlights. And you can put it on top of the lighter color you just did, the light blue. Okay, and then if anything kind of sticks out too much or doesn't look quite right, you can always go back with the darker green and add more of that to kind of reshape things as needed. Okay, but I think we will call this painting complete. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like and subscribe for more painting tutorials, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.